I never imagined my life would unravel in a single afternoon. My name is Brenton, a 32-year-old software developer living in Seattle with my wife of 5 years, Amanda. We had built what I thought was the perfect marriage. But when I came home early one day with flowers and a surprise gift, what awaited me upstairs changed everything. The sounds coming from our bedroom told me something was terribly wrong before I even opened the door. Let me know where you are watching from, and hit subscribe to hear how I discovered my wife's betrayal and what I did next. Amanda and I met at my college friend's birthday party 7 years ago. She walked in wearing a bright blue dress that matched her eyes, and I was immediately drawn to her confidence and wit. We talked all night about everything from our shared love of hiking the Pacific Northwest trails to our career ambitions. 2 weeks later, I asked her on our first official date to a small Italian restaurant near Pike Place Market, and the chemistry between us was undeniable. Our relationship progressed quickly. Within 6 months, we were practically living together at my apartment. Amanda worked in marketing for a tech company, and I was establishing myself as a software developer. We both valued our careers and supported each other through long hours and stressful projects. After dating for 2 years, I proposed during a sunset hike on Mount Rainier, her favorite spot. She said yes without hesitation, and we were married 4 months later in a small ceremony with just family and close friends. The first 3 years of our marriage were everything I had hoped for. We purchased land and built our dream home in a quiet Seattle suburb, a modern 2-story, with large windows that captured the rare Seattle sunshine. We had agreed to focus on our careers before starting a family, and everything seemed to be going according to plan. I was there for Amanda when her father was diagnosed with heart disease, driving her to Indiana 3 times that year to visit him. She supported me when I took a risk and changed companies for a better opportunity, even though it meant several months of financial uncertainty. The first signs that something was wrong appeared about 3 months ago. Amanda started changing her appearance in subtle ways that gradually became more noticeable. First, it was a new haircut, shorter and more styled than her usual simple look. Then came new clothes more expensive than what she typically bought. She joined a gym and began attending religiously 5 days a week, often returning home later than the gym's closing time when I checked online. Her phone became an extension of her hand. She was constantly texting and would immediately step away if it rang. One night I asked casually who she was messaging so frequently, and her response was defensive and vague, just people from work. The next day I noticed she had changed her phone password. A week later, her laptop password changed too. Our physical relationship began to suffer. Amanda always seemed to be too tired or had a headache. When I reached for her at night, she would turn away, mumbling about needing sleep for an early meeting. This had never been an issue before, even during our busiest times. Then came the girls' nights with friends I had never heard of. When I asked to meet these new friends, Amanda always had an excuse for why it was not possible. She started coming home late from work, 2 or 3 times a week, claiming project deadlines and team meetings. Our credit card statement showed charges from a downtown hotel bar and a boutique gift shop, neither of which she mentioned. At first, I told myself I was being paranoid. Amanda was probably just going through something, maybe stress at work, or some personal issue she was not ready to discuss. I tried to rationalize her behavior, thinking perhaps my recent promotion was to blame. My new role required longer hours, and we had been seeing less of each other. Maybe she was just responding to that distance. I made numerous attempts to reconnect with her. I planned special date nights to places that held meaning for us, like the restaurant where we had our first date, or the theater where we saw our first play together. Amanda would initially agree enthusiastically, but would cancel last minute more often than not, citing work emergencies or sudden migraines. I tried cooking her favorite meals, recreating dishes from our favorite vacation in Italy. Most went largely uneaten with Amanda, claiming she had grabbed a bite with colleagues before coming home. When I finally tried to discuss these changes directly, asking if something was wrong between us, she dismissed my concerns. "Everything is fine, Brenton. You are making problems where none exist," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Maybe if you were not working so much, you would not be imagining issues in our marriage." That response hurt. I had taken the promotion partly to save for the family we had discussed starting soon. The accusation that my career was damaging our relationship made me question my choices and added confusion to my growing anxiety about what was really happening. My suspicions continued to grow as Amanda's behavior became increasingly secretive. One evening, while doing laundry, I noticed an unfamiliar scent on her blouse, a distinctly masculine cologne I did not wear. When I mentioned it casually, she quickly dismissed it, saying she had hugged a client after closing a big deal. The explanation seemed reasonable, but something in her hurried response felt off. The real red flag appeared when I found deleted text messages on our shared iPad. Amanda had forgotten to log out of her iMessage account, and while I was not looking for anything specific, notifications kept appearing. A message preview from someone named James read, "Missing you already." Today was, before cutting off. When I opened the app to see the full message, I discovered dozens of texts had been deleted, leaving only fragments of conversations that made little sense out of context. A week later, I ran into Jessica, Amanda's work colleague, at a coffee shop near their office. I had stopped by hoping to surprise Amanda with her favorite latte. Jessica seemed startled to see me and unusually awkward during our brief conversation. When I mentioned I was there to see Amanda, Jessica's eyes widened slightly. "Oh, she is not in the office right now. She had a meeting across town," Jessica said, fidgeting with her coffee cup. I thanked her and left, but later that evening, when I asked Amanda about her day, she specifically mentioned having lunch with Jessica at a restaurant near their office. The contradiction was unmistakable. Either Jessica was lying or Amanda was. Given everything else, I suspected the latter. The mysterious items continued to appear. A keychain with an unfamiliar fob sat in her purse when she asked me to grab her wallet. When questioned, Amanda claimed it was for a new client's office that she needed to visit frequently. Around this time, Amanda suddenly developed a keen interest in her coworker James's projects, mentioning him in conversation more frequently than any other colleague. James thinks we should approach the campaign differently, or James suggested a new strategy that the client loves. The name was becoming a regular feature in our increasingly rare conversations. My sleep suffered terribly. I would lie awake watching Amanda sleep, wondering who she really was, and if our entire marriage had been genuine. My work performance began to decline. I missed deadlines and found myself staring blankly at my computer screen, unable to focus on code. My team leader noticed and expressed concern, but I brushed it off as temporary stress. Despite my growing suspicions, I was reluctant to become the kind of husband who spies on his wife. But as the evidence mounted, I felt I had no choice but to investigate further. I checked our phone records and discovered a pattern of calls to a number I did not recognize, often placed during her supposed girls' nights or late work meetings. The calls sometimes lasted over an hour. The credit card statements revealed more hotel charges not just for the bar but for room service at times when Amanda claimed to be working late. Most damning of all was when I discovered a secret email account. Amanda had left it open on her laptop one morning when she rushed out for an emergency breakfast meeting. The emails between her and James were ambiguous but suggestive, full of inside jokes and references to shared moments I knew nothing about. The ethical dilemma tore at me. Was I violating her privacy? Absolutely. But was I also protecting myself from continued deception? It seemed so. I needed advice, but was too embarrassed to involve family yet. Instead, I reached out to my oldest friend Tyler, who had been through a divorce himself. "You need to know for sure," Brenton Tyler advised over beers at a bar far from my usual haunts. "You could hire a private investigator, get solid evidence." I considered it but ultimately decided on a simpler approach. I would leave work early unannounced and see for myself what Amanda did during the day when she thought I was safely occupied at the office. The emotional toll was becoming visible. I had lost 15 pounds in 2 months without trying. Dark circles had taken permanent residence under my eyes. At work, I turned down the opportunity to lead a major new project, something I would have jumped at before. My team lead was concerned enough to suggest I take some personal time, which only increased my anxiety about the professional consequences of my crumbling personal life. I began documenting everything, saving texts, emails, and credit card statements in a password-protected folder. It felt cold and calculating, but Tyler had impressed upon me the importance of protecting myself if things escalated to divorce. One night, Unable to sleep, I called my brother Michael in Chicago. It was the first time I had admitted the situation to a family member, and saying the words aloud made everything more real. "I think Amanda is having an affair," I told him, my voice breaking. Michael listened without judgment as I detailed the evidence and my suspicions. His support gave me strength but also confirmed my fears. If my suspicions sounded reasonable to someone who knew both Amanda and me, well then I was probably not imagining things. "Whatever happens, Brent, you will get through this," Michael assured me. "But you need to know the truth one way or another." He was right. The uncertainty was destroying me from the inside out. I needed to know even if the truth shattered everything. The day everything changed started normally enough. I headed to the office for a 9 a.m. meeting with a major client, my mind already rehearsing the presentation I had prepared. At 8:45 a.m., my phone buzzed with an email from the client. Due to a family emergency, they needed to reschedule. Suddenly, my entire morning was clear. I sat at my desk, staring at the empty calendar slot when an idea formed. This unexpected free time was an opportunity. Amanda thought I would be in meetings all day. I decided to surprise her with lunch and maybe flowers in an attempt to reconnect despite all my suspicions. Part of me still hoped there was an innocent explanation for everything. I left the office around 11:30 a.m. and stopped first at a florist to buy Amanda's favorite lilies. On impulse, I also went to the jewelry store downtown, where we had bought her engagement ring. 2 weeks earlier, before my suspicions had reached their peak, Amanda had pointed out a silver bracelet in their window display. I purchased it thinking perhaps a meaningful gift might open the door to honest conversation. With flowers and jewelry box in hand, I drove to our favorite Thai restaurant and ordered takeout, including Amanda's usual pad Thai, with extra lime. By 1:15 p.m., I was driving toward our home in the suburbs, rehearsing what I would say when I surprised her at her home office, where she worked remotely on Thursdays. As I turned onto our street, I immediately noticed a car I did not recognize parked about 50 feet from our house, a black BMW that seemed out of place in our neighborhood of modest family vehicles. A chill ran through me, but I dismissed it. It could belong to anyone, a visitor to any house on the block. I pulled into our driveway and gathered my surprise gifts from the passenger seat. Walking to the front door, I was surprised to find it unlocked. Amanda was usually fastidious about home security, especially when home alone. Inside the house was quiet but not entirely silent. The faint sound of music drifted down from upstairs along with occasional muffled voices. My heart began to pound as I set the food and flowers on the kitchen counter. Moving quietly toward the staircase, I tried to convince myself there was an innocent explanation. Perhaps Amanda had a work colleague over to collaborate on a project. Maybe she was on a video call with her team. Each step up the staircase felt heavier than the last. The music grew louder, something slow and jazzy that I did not recognize from our collection. Then I heard it clear and unmistakable. Amanda's laugh followed by a deeper voice that was definitely not coming from a speaker. I stood outside our bedroom door, the jewelry box clutched in my sweaty palm. For a moment I was paralyzed, knowing that opening the door would forever change my life. There would be no going back, no pretending I did not know. I took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The image seared into my brain immediately. Amanda and a man I recognized as James from company photos tangled in our bed, the bed we had chosen together on our 3rd anniversary. They did not notice me at first, lost in each other. Then Amanda's eyes drifted toward the door, and her expression transformed from passion to horror in an instant. "Brenton," she gasped, pulling the sheet up to cover herself. "What are you doing home?" James turned his face a mix of shock and embarrassment as he scrambled to cover himself. I recognized him now, not just as Amanda's colleague, but as her direct supervisor to the department head. She had mentioned countless times in professional contexts. "It is not what it looks like." Amanda blurted out the most cliché line possible in the circumstance. I stood frozen, unable to process the scene before me. This was happening in our home, in our bed, on sheets I had helped pick out. The betrayal was complete and devastating. I felt simultaneously numb and overwhelmed with emotion, my body unable to decide between fight, flight, or complete shutdown. "Get out," I said quietly to James, my voice eerily calm, despite the storm raging inside me. "Look, man, we should talk about this like adults." James started reaching for his pants beside the bed. "Get out. Now." Each word was deliberate and edged with barely controlled fury. James seemed to recognize the dangerous territory and nodded, gathering his clothes quickly while avoiding eye contact. Amanda began a stream of explanations and pleas that washed over me without registering. I watched in detached fascination as James, the man I now knew, had been sleeping with my wife for who knows how long, hopped awkwardly on one foot trying to put on his pants while heading for the door. Once James had slipped past me, I turned my attention back to Amanda, who was now crying tears streaking her makeup. I tossed the jewelry box onto the bed. "I bought this for you today," I said, my voice hollow. "I was going to surprise you with lunch." Without waiting for her response, I turned and walked out, ignoring her calls to wait to talk, to let her explain. I got into my car and drove with no destination in mind. Hours passed as I circled highways and back roads, trying to outrun the images in my head. Eventually, as evening fell, I found myself outside Tyler's apartment building. He took one look at my face when he opened the door and knew. "She was with him, in our bed," was all I managed to say before the shock finally broke and the tears came. The next week passed in a blur as I took refuge at Tyler's apartment. Amanda's calls and messages were relentless, alternating between tearful apologies, angry accusations that I had been emotionally absent, and manipulative attempts to make me feel guilty for not coming home to work things out. I blocked her number after the third day, unable to bear the emotional whiplash. Tyler connected me with David, a family attorney he knew from college. Over coffee at a quiet cafe far from my usual haunts, David outlined my options with clinical precision. "Washington is a no-fault divorce state," he explained, "but evidence of infidelity can sometimes influence property division, especially if marital assets were used to fund the affair." I began methodically documenting everything: the hotel charges on our joint credit card, the gifts purchased with our shared money, the emails I had found. David advised me to make copies of all financial records before Amanda could attempt to hide or alter them. "Move half of any joint accounts into your name," only David suggested. "Not everything as that could be seen as financial abandonment, but enough to protect yourself." Through a mutual friend at Amanda's company, I learned that James had a history of workplace relationships, including one with a marketing intern the previous year that had ended abruptly when he lost interest. The pattern was clear, and it made me wonder if Amanda was just the latest in a line of conquests for him. The most painful discovery came when I returned home while Amanda was at work to collect more of my clothes and important documents. In her dresser beneath her winter sweaters, I found a travel brochure for Bali with handwritten notes about romantic resorts. Checking our joint savings account, I found a substantial withdrawal made 2 weeks earlier money I now suspected was earmarked for this trip with James. In a small box at the back of her closet, I discovered a secret credit card in her name that I had known nothing about, with statements showing jewelry and clothing purchases far beyond what she could afford on her salary. Among the statements was a receipt for a gold watch, presumably for James, purchased just days before our anniversary. After a week of gathering evidence and consulting with David, I arranged to meet Amanda at a coffee shop downtown. I arrived early, selecting a table in the corner that offered privacy while still being in a public space where emotions would need to be contained. Amanda arrived looking simultaneously put together and exhausted. She slid into the seat across from me, immediately reaching for my hand, which I subtly moved away. "Brenton, I am so glad you finally agreed to talk," she began, her voice practiced and controlled. "What happened was a terrible mistake. James means nothing to me. It was just physical, never emotional like what we have." I listened silently as she constructed her narrative, painting herself as confused and temporarily led astray. According to her version, James had pursued her aggressively, using his position of authority to manipulate her. She claimed it had only happened twice, both times recently, and she had already ended things with him. "I want to make this right," she insisted. "We can go to counseling. I will change jobs, whatever it takes." When she finally paused for breath, I calmly placed a folder on the table between us. I know about the Bali trip you were planning with him, I said quietly. I know about the secret credit card and the watch you bought him with our money. I know from the hotel receipts that this has been going on for at least 3 months, not the twice you just claimed. The color drained from Amanda's face as she realized I knew far more than she had anticipated. I have already spoken with a divorce attorney, I continued. I will be filing papers this week. I would prefer to keep this simple and dignified, but I am prepared for whatever approach you choose to take. Amanda's demeanor changed instantly, her conciliatory facade crumbling. You will regret this, she hissed. I will take the house. I will tell everyone you were cold and neglectful. I will make sure your family knows this is your fault. I had anticipated this reaction. The Amanda I thought I knew had disappeared long ago, if she had ever existed at all. You are welcome to try, I replied, standing up. But I have evidence of everything. Think carefully about how you want this to play out. The following days were a flurry of activity as I took control of the situation. While Amanda was at work, I returned home and systematically packed my most important possessions and sentimental items. In her desk drawer, I discovered a stack of love letters from James, dating back 5 months, confirming the affair had been going on much longer than I had initially suspected. Tucked among them were pamphlets for marriage counseling that she had never mentioned to me, suggesting she had considered getting help, but chosen the affair instead. Knowing that Amanda would likely try to control the narrative among our friends, I reached out to our closest social circle first. I did not share all the sordid details, but was honest about discovering her affair with her boss. Most were supportive, though some mutual friends from her workplace distanced themselves, torn between loyalties. The most difficult moment came during a client meeting where James was present representing Amanda's company. Our eyes met across the conference room, and the tension was palpable. After the meeting, I asked to speak with him privately for a moment. I will not be making a formal complaint to your company, I told him, my voice steady. But I want you to know that I am aware of your pattern with female employees, and if I hear you are using your position to pursue anyone else, that may change. James had the decency to look ashamed as he nodded silently. Before Amanda could preemptively shape the story for her family, I made the difficult call to her parents, with whom I had always had a good relationship. Her mother wept on the phone, and her father, still recovering from his heart issues, sounded deeply disappointed, not in me, but in his daughter. We raised her better than this, he said sadly. I am sorry, son. The divorce proceedings moved forward with surprising efficiency, once Amanda realized her attempts at manipulation were ineffective against my evidence and calm resolve. The dream home we had built together went on the market, another casualty of the broken trust between us. Watching strangers walk through what had once been our sanctuary was painful, but also oddly freeing, as if each potential buyer helped sever another tie to my old life. At work, I threw myself into projects with renewed focus, using professional challenges to distract from personal pain. My company had been understanding throughout the ordeal, and when an opportunity arose to transfer to our Boston office, I saw it as the fresh start I desperately needed. The distance would put an entire continent between Amanda and me, giving me space to rebuild without constant reminders. Meanwhile, Amanda's professional life had taken a downturn. Without James's favoritism, her performance was under greater scrutiny, and the whispers about their affair had spread despite my discretion. James himself had been transferred to another department after an ethics review, prompted not by our situation specifically, but by a broader examination of supervisor relationships that our case had indirectly triggered. 3 months after the discovery, Amanda made one last attempt at reconciliation, appearing at Tyler's apartment, unannounced, with tears and promises of change. She revealed that James had ended things once the relationship was exposed, and his career was threatened. Her sudden loneliness and regret seemed genuine, but came far too late. I still care about what happens to you, Amanda, I told her honestly. But I cannot be the person who helps you through this. That bridge is burned. The pain in her eyes was real, but so was the relief I felt at finally being able to say no to her without doubt or guilt. That moment marked a turning point in my healing process. As the divorce finalized, I began attending a support group for men going through similar situations. Hearing others' stories helped normalize my experiences and emotions, showing me that my reactions from the initial shock to the calculated response were natural parts of the process. The group provided a safe space to express anger, grief, and eventually hope. In Boston, I reconnected with Daniel, a college friend I had lost touch with during my marriage. He introduced me to his circle of friends, people with no connection to my past life or to Amanda. With them, I rediscovered parts of myself that had been submerged during my marriage, including my passion for photography that had once filled weekends before being set aside for domestic routines. My first attempts at dating were awkward disasters. Trust did not come easily, and I found myself looking for deception in innocent behaviors. After a particularly uncomfortable date where I questioned a woman's bathroom break as suspicious, I realized I needed more time to process before involving someone else in my unresolved issues. Therapy helped me identify the red flags I had missed or ignored with Amanda: the gradual withdrawal of affection, the unexplained absences, the defensive reactions to innocent questions, the projection of blame. I learned that these patterns were common in unfaithful partners and began to trust my instincts again. 6 months after moving to Boston, I met Sophia at a photography exhibition. She was a graphic designer who had also experienced betrayal in her previous marriage. Our shared experiences created an immediate understanding between us, and our similar healing journeys gave us a common language for discussing boundaries and expectations. Our relationship developed slowly with deliberate conversations about trust and transparency. Where Amanda and I had rushed headlong into commitment, Sophia and I took careful steps, each of us aware of our vulnerabilities and determined not to repeat past mistakes. It was not always easy, but it was honest in a way my marriage had not been for a long time. The 1-year anniversary of discovering the affair arrived with surprising gentleness. I had anticipated a day of renewed anger or grief, but instead found myself reflecting on how much stronger I had become. That evening, I received an unexpected email from Amanda, her first contact in many months. "I know I have no right to reach out," she wrote, "but I wanted you to know that I am getting help for my issues with honesty and self-worth. You deserve so much better than what I gave you. I hope you have found happiness." I read the message several times before responding with a simple acknowledgement and genuine wishes for her healing journey. The exchange provided a closure I had not realized I still needed. Looking back now, I can see that the signs were present from early on, but I had chosen to ignore them out of love and trust. I had sacrificed my intuition on the altar of our marriage, dismissing valid concerns as paranoia. The lesson was painful but valuable, teaching me to honor my own perceptions rather than allowing them to be dismissed. The most important lesson was about regaining control. By refusing to let Amanda's betrayal define me, and by taking methodical steps to protect myself and shape my own future, I had reclaimed agency in my life. The affair happened to me, but my response to it was my choice, and that distinction made all the difference in my recovery. The support of friends like Tyler, family like Michael, and even strangers in my support group proved essential to my survival and eventual thriving. Their perspective and encouragement carried me through the darkest moments when my own strength faltered. Now I try to offer the same support to others beginning their own journeys through betrayal and recovery. Today, as I walk through my new neighborhood in Boston, camera in hand capturing the historic architecture and autumn leaves, I feel a profound gratitude for the painful lessons that led me here. The betrayal that once seemed like the end of my story became instead a difficult but necessary chapter in a longer, richer narrative. Have you ever had to rebuild your life after betrayal? What helped you move forward? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming life's challenges. Thank you for listening. And remember that sometimes our most painful moments become the foundation for our greatest growth.